So we did a project with it's an NGA called Startup Nation Central. I'm sure that the Israeli audiences know it. It's basically it's like Crunch. They have many things, but one of the things that they have, one of the platforms they have, is the Finder, and the Finder is a parallel of Crunchbase, but in the Israeli ecosystem. So it gives you all the information about different, startups and tech companies in the ecosystem to help investors get more informed and maybe invest in these companies. And one of the things they said that you can sign up to the platform to get more features. It's basically a freemium, but it's not a freemium because it's free. Also, you just have to sign up and you get more features. It's for free. But the work was to understand why are people not signing up. So there was a specific conversion rate or KPI that we were looking at.
Welcome to our series entitled The IM Podcast, a podcast about innovation, business, and most importantly, people. In this series, we'll be talking to founders, executives, and various experts about their vision, challenges, best practices, and lessons learned throughout their journey. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the IM Podcast. I am Moriah, your host, and today with me is the founder at Q Behavioral Thinking. I'm very excited. Please welcome Bendor Cohen. Hi, Roy.
Hi, Moriah. Thank you for inviting me, and hi to all the audience. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, we're happy and thankful. So we are waiting for you. I'd love you to talk about your personal, your career background, your experience, and your expertise. Who is Roy?
Wow. Let's start with the academic background. Maybe it would be a good start.
Sure.
So I did my master's in cognitive psychology. My research was more about creative thinking and the relationship between that and memory, cognitive attention and cognitive functions. But then afterwards, I joined a company called SIT, Systematic Inventive Thinking, which is a consultant firm that is focusing on innovation. And they have a very interesting method to come up with innovative ideas and, by overcoming cognitive fixedness. So I worked there for a while, and it gave me a lot of experience. I traveled a lot and worked in different companies and organizations around the world. And 4.5 years ago, I founded my own company, which is called Q Behavioral Thinking, which is a consulting and research firm that is based on behavioral insights, which I guess I will explain a bit more about it later. But basically, the idea is to have a deep understanding of people in a certain context, and then based on that understanding, create solutions. So we work with a very broad, different companies. I guess the audience here will be interested in the tech sector, but we work also with the public sector and private sector with different companies that are not necessarily like banks or food companies. What else can I say about myself? I think that's, I also have a podcast in Hebrew, My Design. I'm actually the house of my partner in crime, Tom Evan. And together we talk about different types of, effects in behavioral psychology and behavioral economics and different, biases and facts. And we interview people, but that's another level,
Yes, very interesting, but we will reserve that for later. I'll ask you to invite them later, but let's talk first about Q Behavioral Thinking. So what problem in the industry did you solve? What did you see? What gap did you see?
Yeah, so I'm deliberately whether to start with a case study, which was my first project that made me understand that a solution is needed. But basically, what we do is we know how to translate any business challenge or organizational challenge into a behavioral question. So to phrase it in behavioral terms, and then there we have all the research methods to be able to understand and to extract valuable insights about the situation. And then we know how to translate that back into solutions for the business. So maybe as an example, it will be easier to understand. One of the first project, basically the project that made me understand that Q needs to be born, was a project I did in Nigeria. It was 2017, end of 2017. I was sent by a company called Nova Lumos. And basically what they do is they sell It's a lease-to-own model of solar energy systems. And basically people pay a down payment, and then they pay monthly or weekly or daily using their airtime. And after 5 years, the system is theirs. And one of the things that they asked me, or the reason they called me from the first place, was that they had a churn rate that was going higher and higher. So basically people were opting out from the service, and it was a big, a retention issue. And when I talked to the people in the company, the CEO and different, people that were in charge of this situation, they didn't really know what were the reasons for the churn. So they thought there was a few different types of, I would call them now myths or assumptions about the situation. But after I went there for 2.5 weeks and I did my research, which was a combination of qualitative and quantitative research. So basically I was driving, I had a driver in Nigeria, and we went to different houses of customers that were loyal customers and customers that opted out. And I had a deep, in-depth interview with them, basically doing an ethnographic research in their houses to understand how they use the system, what happens if there's a technical case, and so on. And also I did a survey, and I used the data from the BI. So, and taking all of it together to be able to, really understand what is happening and why are these people opting out from the system, from the service. And one of the things that I discovered, there were many things that I discovered. It's like almost like a thesis. But one of the things was that when I was asking people, what happens if you have a technical problem? And a surprising answer came. So some people said, we call the neighbor, we call a friend, we call a family member, we call the technician of the village. And this came up again and again. It was almost a pattern that I saw in the interviews. So we did a survey it was around 250 customers. And it was also people who churned, people who didn't churn. And we asked what happens when you have a technical case. 40% said one of these answers and not calling the customer service. And that was a very interesting insight for me. And also the company, I think they thought that it happens, but they didn't know how, large and how much, it's a thing that is common between many customers. And this was this is a behavioral insight, or this is an insight basically to understand that when people have a technical problem, they don't call customer service. And it's very contextual to that context, which is also something very important in understanding behavior. It's all in context. In Israel, we usually, if you have a problem with my phone, I usually will call, my service provider. I won't call my friend. But back then in Nigeria, that was the situation. And based on that insight, we did a workshop. And this is where my experience as an innovation facilitator, which I said in the beginning, I'm an expert in a method called systematic inventive thinking. And one of the things in this method is to basically use existing resources to solve a situation. So one of the things we did was we thought, what happens if we actually use other customers that will help the customer situation, which is already happening. But it's happening because this is, the behavior. So we basically came up with an ambassador program, which was training the best, most loyal customer from each village or each community to give others service proactively. So basically, he goes around the community and helps other people to understand how to use the system and to clean it. And if there's a problem, he calls customer cares for them. And basically, we saw that the churn rate goes much lower and the average revenue per user goes higher by 13% among the areas in which they implemented this idea. So this is a long story to give you for a short answer to basically to say, like, there's a churn problem. It's a business challenge. It's a strategic business challenge of retention. We translated into a behavioral question of why are people opting out? What are the motivations, the barriers are behind it, how they think about it. We conducted the research. And based on that, we came up with the insights that allowed us to come with a solution. And then we saw also the impact. So this is in a nutshell.
Oh, very interesting. I mean, you translate business challenges to behavioral questions and then you help them, you help solve them. And you talked about the AARRR, right? How important are these KPIs to a business or to business success?
I I wouldn't. I'm not an expert in saying what are the importance of this because there's more experienced people that came up with this model. It's not my model. I forgot the name of this investor that came up with it. But basically, the AARRR model is just I'm sure most of the people know, but it's activation, acquisition, revenue, referral, and retention. Basically, I think it's a very interesting thing. It's usually metrics for growth teams or product teams or marketing teams. But I think what's interesting is that behind each one of these KPIs or metrics, there's a behavioral question. So we almost, I think we did more, besides referral, we did, or each, like the project I just talked about is about retention.
Yes.
But we do also have projects around acquisition and activation. So we did a project with, it's an NGA called Startup Nation Central. I'm sure that the Israeli audiences know it. It's basically it's like Crunch. They have many things, but one of the things that they have, one of the platforms they have, is the Finder, and the Finder is a parallel of Crunchbase, but in the Israeli ecosystem. So it gives you all the information about different, startups and tech companies in the ecosystem to help investors to get more informed and maybe invest in these companies. And one of the things they said that you can sign up to the platform to get more features. It's basically a freemium, but it's not a freemium because it's free. Also, you just have to sign up and you get more features. It's for free. But the work was to understand why are people not signing up. So there was a specific conversion rate or KPI that we were looking at, and we did all the different type of research that I talked before. Like we did interviews with users and with visitors. We watched how they use the website. So basically, they're using this. I think it's called ClickTail, or one of these programs that allows you to understand how people use the website and the platform. And we also did a survey, and basically based on all, we integrated all of this information to understand what are the barriers to signing up, and also to understand the motivation to signing up. And there are many different solutions that they implemented, but one of them was something that sounds trivial, but at that point wasn't so much. It's like the perceived value for the user was that all the platform is already open, so why do they need to sign up? So they, like any freemium, they limited some stuff, so the different type of searches that you can do, but the user didn't know that he's limited or she's limited. So we understood that the perceived value, that's also something interesting. Like we're looking at perceived value. The company is objectively saying that we are doing something, but it doesn't mean that the user definitely understands, or the interpretation is the user's interpretation. So we are there to understand the voice of the user. So the AARRR is just a very good way for us to help tech companies to understand that these are your metrics and your KPIs. We just know how to translate it into a behavioral question and then help you with that KPI.
Okay, yes. All right. So human behavior, and you are an expert at that. So I just wonder, how has the human behavior changed? Can I ask, like, pre-pandemic and if we are in the post period?
Yeah. So I'm not an expert on that period in that sense. Like I know a few anecdotes, but I didn't conduct a research, so I don't want to say anything that is not based on findings or any empirical data. I do see interesting things. Like we know that, for example, these companies, like in Israel, it's Wolt. I think it's called, I forgot the name in the States, but all the delivery, home delivery of food is something that changed completely, and it's here to stay. Like we used to go much more in the past to restaurants. Now ordering food became, not a luxury, but like almost like a day-to-day thing. So I think our expectations in that sense changed a lot, or the way our habits. What other change, I think, is the work. We know that hybrid work became a big thing. The big resignation happened lately also, and I think it's all connected in terms of how people feel do they feel connected to their organizations or not? And I think that pandemic, helped that, accelerated that process. And of course, people don't want to work anymore from the office 5 days a week. And so these are the anecdotes I saw. But again, I'm not an expert on that.
Yes.
I didn't conduct a research around that.
We will wait for that. I mean, for your research, and then please share with us the result. Okay. So you and your team, right? You've been working, you're doing the work remotely. Okay. So first, please talk to us about Tom, about your team.
Yeah. So it's a team. Today we're almost 20 freelancers, and that's also important. We're all freelancers. Since day one, we don't have full-time employees, and we still manage to operate today with our ongoing 15 projects happening at the same time, more or less. And we have also around 10 sales processes in different stages. So it's, let's say, a small, medium organization that operates without any full-time employees. And I think this is interesting by itself. It's,
yes.
And the team, just talking about before the organization, how it's structured, basically where each one has its own superpower, let's say. So we really believe in interdisciplinarity. And behavior is something that you can understand from very different lenses. Even if you go to academia, there's anthropology, sociology, social psychology, cognitive psychology, behavioral economics, and so on. Like all the social sciences are basically interested in behavior in some way or another. So in order to stop with the separation between disciplines, we decided to bring all the disciplines and create like a fusion kitchen of all of them. So if you go to our website, you can see each person and their superpower. So we have an anthropologist that he's very good at qualitative research, social psychologist that is more about surveys and social situations. And we have also people that are we opened it up, so we have also strategic consultants and designers and UX experts and it's all basically a holistic approach to understand human behavior. And so we work in interdisciplinary teams between 2 and 5 people, depending on the challenge. And then we combine, for example, qualitative and quantitative research as a way to understand the situation. And then if it's in the digital space, so they have also UX people that can bring their perspective into that. So this is the team, and it allows, by the way, each one has his own work that is separate from Q. They have their own projects. But once there is something that is a bigger project, and we want to compete with the big consulting firms, so we want to take upon ourselves like bigger projects, this is a great platform to do it. And it's a great platform because it's working only with experts. We don't have, by the way, any hierarchy in that sense. Maybe I'm the founder, has some privilege, but not so much if you ask them. But at the end of the day, all the rest we're the same. There's no titles in that sense, so no there's no hierarchy. There's basically people that we build a team. There is a team leader in a team, so it's very clear who's the point of contact for the client and what so on. So in that sense, we operate normally, but basically we build teams for a project. They do the project and then they separate, and then we build another project, a team, and several people can work on several projects at the same time. So that's one way, and it's very interesting, and it's the same people. It's not like we're calling any freelancer to work. Like there's a recruiting process. We have to make sure that these people now today much better than before know who can take part and who wants to be part of this community that is created, because it's more about the projects. Projects are the, let's say, the main thing, or the way we create revenue, but it's a lot of learning that we do. So we meet once every 3 weeks. It's called quality time. By the way, all the initiatives are with Q. So quality time, Q, everything is Q. That's the way to decide if an initiative can happen, is there's a Q in it or not. So quality time is the time that we all meet together, and each time someone tells either a case study that they did either in Q or outside of Q, or they talk about a method or a research that they've done, or it doesn't matter. Like basically, it's a way for us to share and to teach each other and to learn from each other. We do offsites twice a year, so it's it's full day offsite. We teach different things that next time will be about communication. Last time was about values. Like we have this. So imagine an organization. We call it an organization, organization that is not an organization. And I think I read more and more that this is the way that companies, organizations will be in the future, especially when people want to work on several things and not one thing, and they don't want to be in the office for five times a week. And I think this structure is very flexible and allows you to provide value.
Yeah.
By the way, provide value to the clients and provide value for each other. And we never worked. So now we have an office, but nobody comes there. So, because we were freelancers since day one. Before even COVID hit, we were working for home coffee shops, co-working spaces. So the office doesn't make sense for many people. We have our platform. We work with it's called Basecamp, but basically it's anyway. Everything is done remotely.
Yes.
And it didn't surprise us. Let's say that the COVID was hit hard, but it wasn't new for us to work from home. Only that our partners and our kids also came home. That was the big issue back then.
Wait, I have a question.
I'll stop.
Yes. No, I just have a question. So you said you're working with a group of freelancers, they're all experts. They all have their own brands, you said. So they can decide whether they would work on this project or not, right? You have that kind of flexibility and freedom. Have you ever faced the challenge of, okay, there's a project and we lack people who will work on this? Or not at all?
Yes. No. Let's say it's never pink as it's described. It happened more in the past. It still happens. So it's a disadvantage, and there's sometimes, if the project is not interesting enough, or maybe we didn't manage to price it in a price that allow us to work on it, or people are just busy on other things. And again, it's all about the values that we set, like freedom. We adopted from, we have different values, but I really like Netflix. Netflix published that one of their way to look at it is freedom and responsibility. So I don't, again, everything I say, you can ask my team, you can reach them. It's easy to do. I try not to put pressure in taking projects. And by the way, my pressure won't help anyway, because I'm not the boss. I'm just the founder. So if the project is not interesting enough, and people are busy, we just at some point we won't take the project, and we might refuse projects, and how to say, it's money on the floor or money on the table or whatever, but we are unable to take it, and we won't take it. I do think that it happens less than before because we manage, first of all, to understand what is interesting. We work on what we have passion about. So I know for each one of these people what are the types of projects that they enjoy working on, and I really believe in intrinsic motivation. So if someone really enjoys and really feels relates and connects to the cause, they will do the best job, the best work ever. So that's how I match. Basically, it's a platform that allows to match between a client's need and a team that wants to work on it with intrinsic motivation, with passion, with everything, and they have full autonomy in that sense. Like they have full autonomy. That's the freedom. I'm not involved. If they want me to be involved, I get involved. But unless there's a big crisis or something that I see that is about to happen, I usually let them allow a complete design. They have a separate P&L. They can decide even to outsource some of the project if they need. So it's a very interesting model that we created, and we're refining it. By the way, it's also called the pirate model because in the past, pirates used to work like this. Like it was like a share system. Like whoever joins the ship gets a share. 1 share, 2 shares, depends. It was like very transparent, very clear, what each person gets. So I adopted and adapted. And basically at the beginning we work like this, and then there's full transparency. Everybody knows about all the projects. Everybody knows about all the proposals. They have full access. And even the discussion that we do among ourselves is basically, there's like, I always say we have 2 negotiations. One is with the client and the other one is internally. because we have a few principles of how to divide between us, but we changed a lot, and now it's basically almost free of how to share it between us, or the project team that is working on it.
Okay.
So yeah, it's very, in that sense, it's very, I don't know of any organization that is so transparent and allows people to decide about how much they want to get from a project, and basically there's an internal debate. I wouldn't say it's not an easy one, but I think it creates some kind of commitment from these people to the brand, and these people are experts. Okay, so it's not so easy like for them. So bringing all these experts under one brand, I think is for me it was just a big success.
What happens if there are disagreements? You get different kinds of energy and expertise, right? They're not. You said you don't have any juniors, so name your price. So what if there are disagreements?
Yeah. So there are many disagreements. We started creating a guidebook or a handbook or a playbook or whatever you want to know. That is like the policy. There's no policy, but like principles of how, some processes, and what happens if this and that. One of the things I learned from a very interesting book called Reinventing Organizations by Frederic Laloux is that, and he looked at many different organizations. He called them teal organizations, which are flat organizations, and there's they have the same values, and I'm very inspired by this book. This and Humanocracy from Gary Hamel's Humanocracy. There's a few books talking about this kind of organizations. In Frederic Laloux talks about the advisor. So imagine there's a team and there's disagreement. So they can approach every team member. It doesn't have to be me. Any team member to serve like an objective person that will hear the disagreement and will try to facilitate it. It doesn't have any authority on them. He or she doesn't have any authority. So it's not a manager, it's not anyone. And basically by doing that, that is in case, usually they solve the disagreement among themselves. There's also a leader that, again, the leader decides at the end of the day, but the team can disagree. So again, I wouldn't say it's a chaos or anarchy, but it's close to that in that sense. But among mature and responsible and accountable people, it usually works. And if not, the advisor can help, mitigate, maybe overcome the conflict. And if it doesn't work, then it comes to me, and then I try to solve it in some way. But again, I usually say there's no reason to escalate to it, because I'm not smarter than I'm not the smartest person in the room. I'm actually not at all. So in that sense, I can just help, maybe some resources that I have as, someone that is in charge of Q can help in a way. And maybe I just go to the guidebook and open it and see if there's anything that we're already written. And if not, we will write a principle according to it. In extreme cases, I'm trying to think of what happens in extreme cases. In very extreme cases, we solve it by the end of the day. Some people didn't belong to Q from the first place, and we had to, to decide that they won't continue, which is something very interesting in Q, because on one hand, there's lost solidarity and there's a lot of empathy, and there's looks like La La Land in the sense like you can do whatever you want, but at the end of the day, if you don't provide value every time consistently, people they want to work with you. So at the end, the team decides who will stay in the team, because if someone consistently doesn't provide, or the standards are not as the others expect, they won't work with him or her. And then if I see that someone doesn't get projects, at some point I will ask why nobody wants to work with you, and then they just might leave the organization. So it's something on the one hand there's a lot of solidarity, and the other one is a bit expectations, and anyway, it's not cruel, but it's like the expectations are very high and the standards are high, and it's great. That's what allows us to be the best in the market and provide the value that we provide.
Okay, yes. So yes, again, there's a lot of experts in the team. What's some recent learning that you got from them, or from this experience, or from this structure? Non-hierarchical, full transparent.
I learned that transparency is double-edged sword. And I think we all want transparency, and people, like, I think especially because most organizations that, you know, the more traditional one are not transparent at all. Like, people don't know what are each other's salaries. Like, not all the information is open to all the employees. So, and I learned that, by the way, from SAT, from Anon Levav, the co-founder and CEO. He was the one that introduced me this whole idea of transparency. And I think that, but, you know, human behavior is that sometimes transparency could be like have a boomerang effect. For example, I see that what happens for us sometimes is that the discussions are too much. I look right and left to understand what there's a, you know, experiment. It's not even an experiment, just a, you know, a thought experiment. Like, if you get a raise of $5,000 or 5,000 shekels, you will be happy. But if you discover that everyone around you got a raise of 10 or 15,000, you might quit. So it's not it's relative at the end of the day. We don't look at money as an absolute. We look at it as a relative thing. And I think that is what happens to us. Like, this transparency, sometimes it's great, it's amazing, but because we are not used to this transparency, sometimes it's a you know, comparison that we have. So then also transparency, it's like important to know when and how and why. And on the other hand, I know that especially women, there's always this gap of salaries. So in Q, it happens less, or it doesn't happen at all, I guess, I hope, because everyone knows how much everyone is getting. So there's no way of, you know, paying men a different salary than women in that sense. So there are also very interesting, you know, social issues that can be solved by using transparency. But whoever wants to do it, prepare yourself for a lot of discussions. We even did it now with the lawyer. We wanted to sign a contract among ourselves. Up until now, 4 years, we didn't have a contract, but we decided that we should have a contract. And basically, we are working on it together. Like, everybody is talking to the lawyer and saying what they think about it and how we change it and how to align it with the values of Q. And, you know, so it's not an easy work. And I think most of the time today is just, you know, aligning and trying to understand the different needs and be very able to understand and hear what other people feel and then cater to that. And sometimes just to say, look, there's no other way. We have to do it this way. I guess they trust me at this point enough to be able to get also to the points that I have to, this is the way it is, and that's it. Okay. But it happens very rarely, I have to say.
I just remember what Ronan Manipa said, like, your superpower can be your kryptonite. Like, it can be your weakness.
Yeah. So we discovered that, but I think, again, because it's such an open conversation, because of the trust in the team, we're able to overcome these things. Like we discussed this whole thing of transparency. I shared with people. I said, look, I feel that we're too much focusing on how much everyone is getting and not on the, you know, the projects. And we got that. And it's an evolution. I think what's happened is like we're so stuck in how, you know, we operate in different contexts, like, you know, in different organizations. And then you bring that to the place that doesn't make sense. Like, in organization with hierarchy, you always say, okay, I don't know how to solve it. I will escalate to the superior. And I always say to my team, but there's no one to escalate to. Like, you're a team of pirates in the middle of the sea, and you have to be able to find solutions by yourselves. And I think after a while, it works amazingly. Like, they really operate autonomously. And I think we enjoy it. We enjoy it. There's the opposite of micromanagement.
Yeah, full responsibility. And you're leading people where your vision, right? Like, money is relative, but focus on this bigger than you. I mean, this mission. So where are you leading Q Behavioral? Where are you headed to?
Yeah. Wow. Vision is a big word. We tried to do it, and we even have a vision and we have a mission, and I know the difference between the two, but it's always very hard to separate the two. I think that would sound like a cliche, I think, but we really believe that organizations can become more human and more human, right? Human and human with E at the end. But that's like the big vision. And I think what we're trying to do is as one of our team members at ARRR says, like eat our own dog food, and basically to try it on ourselves. Like this whole organization came from the understanding that intrinsic motivation is very important as opposed to extrinsic motivation, and that's how we started to come up with this model. And so we're also trying to be an example to other organizations of how you can operate in an extreme way, right? Because it's only freelancers. Like you can do the same with full-time employees, I guess. And the mission is, again, mission vision is basically what makes us wake up in the morning is that we're able to tackle complex challenges, business or organizational, by having a deep understanding of human behavior. And that's, again, it sounds more like a mission than a vision at this point, and maybe it's just because we're still young in 4 years, and in the future we'll have it more clearly. But I think what is interesting for us is that we have a technology, it's the research methods that we got, especially from academia, but not only, because we have a lot of experience afterwards working in the business sector, is that we have a way to really understand how people behave in some context. And people could be users, customers, clients, investors, employees. It doesn't really matter. Like we know how to, observe and understand behavior, which means what people think, feel, and act in a specific context. And this is very important. Like in different contexts, it changes. And then based on that, could come up with creative solutions. So one of the visions of missions is that. The other one is the interdisciplinarity. Like we really believe in interdisciplinarity. I know that many people talk about it, but that's the core of our work. Like understanding that each model, each framework, each research method has its own limitations, because the moment you have a model, you have a set of assumptions about, and behavioral economists don't see anthropologists the same way. They still look at behavior, but in a very different way. They have a different set of assumptions, different set of tools to understand. So this is something that is amazing that's happening internally. This whole conversation of different people talking about, with different terminology, different set of assumptions. And it's not an easy one. You need a lot of humility to be able to have these conversations. But I think what it brings a spark at the end of the day. Like the types of insights that we can come up with this interdisciplinary work is allowing us, and this is part of the vision I discussed before, like to get to the depth. Like we like to understand behavior in a deep manner, and then create impact in the world based on that. And there's also complex challenges that we didn't get yet, but climate change is a behavioral challenge. Like at the end of the day, if everyone will stop doing certain things, we might be able to fix it. The thing is, how do you change the behavior of 7 billion people in this planet? So we got these kind of challenges, and this is like the most complex or wicked problems that you can see, but we can also do it in more like in the tech industry, just as I said before, like understanding your users in a deep manner. How do they perceive? How do they understand your product? And basically, if there's an entrepreneur that wants to do something, an impact in the world, it might have the best technology or best product. If he or she don't understand the users and how they behave and operate, you might as well be able to throw this product or technology to the trash bin, because at the end of the day, technology is at service of humans. And humans, there's a way to understand how they operate. It's not an easy one. Humans operate with, they can operate one day this way and the other day.
Yeah.
There's a lot of counterfactual, like things that look counterintuitive in human behavior, but there is still a way. Like there's behavioral science has developed a lot in the past years, and I think this is what excites us.
Yes. Oh, very interesting. You talked about the case study. At the onset, like you communicate with your users, you really talk to them to understand them, to deeply understand them. And you talked about intrinsic motivation and outside motivation. So I'm curious, like coming from a behavioral expert, okay? So about intrinsic motivation, how do you talk to yourself? How do you get motivated? Are there ways or tips?
That's the holy grail in $1 million question. Wow. it's not a one. There's many ways to do it. And by the way, sometimes the question is not about the motivation. It's about creating an environment that allows you to do things without having motivation. Motivation is a flaky thing. It's trusting with willpower that we can wake up one day with high motivation, the other way with low motivation, and trusting only your motivation won't get you far. Like it's to create routines, habits, consistency that enables to do it, and creating an environment that allows you to do it. Even if your chocolates are just on the desk, then you eat chocolate. But if you put it behind a closet, a door, or even put it upstairs that you have to reach it with standing on something, then it will reduce the amount of chocolates that you eat. So this is just one way. But what I'm trying to say is that trusting your motivation is not always the best bet. And in terms of intrinsic motivation, again, I go back to how we created Q. It's based on, there's different models and theories. One of the famous one is self-determination theory that talks about, belongingness and talks about purpose. And there's also a book called Drive by Daniel Pink that talks about 3 pillars, that is basically purpose, mastery, and autonomy. This is what led me to create Q as it is. Like, if you have a clear purpose, where you're going, and it creates meaning to your life. If you have full autonomy to do the things that you want to do, and you become a master as you work, like you have the challenges that go higher, bigger and bigger, then this is the key to get what he calls motivation 3.0, or intrinsic motivation. So I think it's also about creating these things. Like I see for myself, I have full autonomy. My team has full autonomy in their own projects, mastery, because the projects the challenges are tougher and tougher and harder. We get more interesting. The client's needs become more interesting and more challenging. So and then also purpose. This is what I'm trying to create. Like this thing that we're creating that is new. It's basically a new thing. It didn't exist 4.5 years ago. There was no Q, there was no such an organization, and think in that sense, I can take these principles of motivation 3.0, intrinsic motivation, to the way we work together.
Wow, I think they can learn a lot from your podcast. Well, please invite them to your podcast, Roy.
Yeah, so it's called Mind Design.
Mind Design.
My partner, Mind Design, yeah. Together, I'm co-hosting it with Tom Evan, who is I'm just at his house right now because he has all the equipment, and we already published 17, I think, episodes. Each one is about a different psychological effect, cognitive bias, and parts of it is research, and part of it is examples from real world examples from the tech industry, private industry, different places. The episodes are short, between 20 and 30 minutes. It's in Hebrew. And we're very excited about it.
In the future.
Not yet, maybe in the future. It's a work in progress.
All right. How can they connect to you, Roy? What's the easiest way?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is the best way. I operate on LinkedIn. I also publish their blogs in English. We have a Q blog. We already published 30 articles there. Not only me, the team also published, and I think more people will publish, so stay tuned there. I think LinkedIn is the best way. LinkedIn, of course, email. We can put it in the comments maybe at the end of this episode. Definitely LinkedIn is my favorite platform.
All right, same here. Thank you very much, Roy. This podcast is powered by imops.io. Optimize your cloud infrastructure and CI/CD process with imops.io dedicated DevOps team. Check out www.imops.io and get a DevOps team now. Make sure to check out www.imops.io if you want to know more about us. Subscribe to our podcast so you can get notified every time we post a new video. Thank you, and you have a great day.